Good evening, everyone. I am Advocate Vikas Garg, founder and CEO of LawUpdates.in. I would like to welcome you all in today's session. Today, we have with us Advocate Abhishek Upadhyay, Director and Senior Legal Counsel at Advocate Upadhyay and Associates, who is practicing at He is an experienced legal professional with expertise in handling matters related to prevention of sexual harassment and cyber law. He has trained more than 25,000 corporate professionals and more than 7,000 executives of nodal authorities on topics like POSH, cybersecurity, and criminal laws. He will be taking today's session on the topic prevention of sexual harassment at workplace. I have a small announcement for all the attendees that they can post their questions in the YouTube live chat, which will be taken up by Sir in the end of this session. Now, I would like to invite Advocate Abhishek Upadhyay Sir to start today's session. Over to you, Sir.
Thank you, Vikas, for the warm introduction and a very good evening to all the viewers of this webinar. First of all, I would like to thank you for taking out your valuable time and coming here on this Sunday to understand that what is sexual harassment and what are the various facets of sexual harassment. This is the second time that we are collaborating with Law Updates, and let me tell you that the experience has been really great, and they have been very hospitable towards me. And this positivity has definitely made me positive, and I feel and I hope in the next 40-45 odd minutes, I'm able to take you through the various facets or the various nuances of sexual harassment. So basically, let us try to understand what is sexual harassment, what are the different elements of sexual harassment, what are the internal complaint mechanisms that are settled or that are set up under this Prevention of Sexual Harassment Act. So we are going to talk about all these things in this webinar. So first of all, before we start with this webinar, let me start with some very interesting statistics. You would all be very glad to know that 48.1% of the total working population or the working force in India constitutes of women. But the thing that is very disheartening or very unfortunate to know is that 53% out of these 48% women have faced sexual harassment of some form. So maybe it be it in the form of gestures, in the form of jokes, in the form of comments. So 53% of these women have faced sexual harassment of some form. And that is why the necessity or the need of the hour is the awareness and sensitization part. Now, the awareness and sensitization should start with women because this particular act was formed to protect the modesty and integrity of a woman at workplace. As we put a very strong lock to all your physical assets and your physical things, even your modesty and integrity is a part of your physical asset, and it should be your duty to ensure that you are aware and sensitized about how to protect your modesty and integrity at work. Now, this awareness and this sensitization should not only end towards the women. Now, this awareness and sensitization should also be given to the employers. So, people who are employing various women at that workplace, they should be given that sort of an awareness or sensitization in terms of what are their duties, what are their obligations, what are the steps that they need to take in order to ensure that they have created a safe and secure workplace. So hence the sensitization and awareness should be done from the side of the employers as well. The third side that needs to be made aware or sensitized would be the judiciary. Now you would like to ask me that why the judiciary needs to be sensitized. So friends, let us understand that this act is a fairly new act. It has been passed or enacted in the year 2013, and it is just a 7-year-old act. So right now there are a lot of new technologies that are coming in using which crimes occur, like maybe personally, if someone is not coming and harassing you, or trying to outrage your modesty. But all these forms can help also happen in the terms of in the digital forms. So hence the kind of awareness and sensitization should also be given to the judiciary, because judiciary is the one who actually passes should be made aware about what are the different facets, or what are the elements, or what all things would come under the gambit of sexual harassment. Because trust me, I have seen lot of cases wherein the judiciary is not actually aware about the laws, what aware about the provisions, and about the certain things that has been made mandatory in order to ensure that a woman is safe and secure at her working place. Now the fourth side that needs to be made aware, or that needs to be sensitized, you can say, would be the investigation agency. Now whenever there is a sexual harassment incident that happens, there is always an option available with the women that they can go ahead and make a complaint in the police, and it is the duty of the police officer to register the complaint under the relevant sections of the Indian Penal Code, which we would be talking about in the in the coming part of this webinar. So friends, we need to understand, when all these four sides or these four dimensions are covered, that is when we can say that India as a country is inching closer to create a workplace which is very safe and secure for women. Now, before we go ahead and try to understand what is this sexual harassment, let us, discuss a case that happened with me when I was giving a seminar in a big MNC in Mumbai. So the topic of the webinar was sex prevention of sexual harassment at workplace and the elements that constitute sexual harassment. So after this webinar got over, what happened is that one particular female working in that particular organization came up to me, and she was in a total emotional distress, and she started crying, and she said that, sir, I really need your help in this particular matter. I said that you already have an internal complaints committee. What is there wherein I can help you out, because I'm not a part of that committee. So that is when she said that I can't go ahead and discuss this matter in the office, but I would like to come and meet you in your office. I said, okay, let us. I gave her a time slot for tomorrow, and as discussed, she came to my office. So as soon as she entered the office, I could understand, looking at her, that she was very emotionally depressed, and there was something that was not right, and there was something which was troubling her mind a lot. So when I tried to probe further, she said that there is a manager working in this particular organization, and he's continuously sending her harassing messages. He's sending her, sexual invitations. He's sending her, sometimes nude pictures. And I said that, why didn't you go ahead and make this complaint with the, with the internal complaints committee, or the internal complaints mechanism that has been set up in the organization? So that is when she also told me that she has made and registered a complaint in the with the internal complaints committee. Although they say that they have called the manager, and he says that he has not done anything, he did not send any such messages, and only on the basis of his verbal statement that he has not done anything, the internal complaint committee was not taking up any action. I understood that this matter is of a very serious nature, because this involves the integrity and modesty of a woman. So I took this matter on moral grounds, and in the first leg of investigation, we came to know that the ID using which such emails or such photos or such invitations were sent, they were sent from using an email ID or an account which was used from the vicinity of the office. So when we checked the IP address and other details, we came to know that this account is accessed from somewhere in the vicinity of the office. And when we tried to dig in deeper, when we did the next level of investigation, we came to know that it is actually not the manager, but it is a female member from her same team who had created this fake ID, and she was doing all this stuff to harass her and to make her leave the job, because she was performing extremely well. So there was a sort of a work jealousy that was brewing between the two, and just in order to hamper her emotional quotient or her emotional side, that is why she was actually going ahead and doing such harassing act. Friends, I hope you understood the point that I'm trying to make here. The point that I'm trying to make here is that is the reason I always say that awareness and sensitization is the only key that will help you remain safe. Because if you're aware and if you're sensitized, you know what your rights are, you know what your obligations are. And let me tell you that this sort of sessions or awareness sessions that we create, this should not be only limited to the women, because it should also be the it should be directed towards men as well, because even they should know that what are the different elements of sexual harassment, what are the different facets, or what acts or behavior what do you say, what acts or behavior are actually forming a part of sexual harassment. So, friends, today as we are in this webinar, let me ask you that, as if suppose I'll give you a scenario today, you can always give me, the answers in the comment box. So let me go ahead and ask you one question. Suppose there is a male and female employee working in an office, and if the male employee likes a particular female employee in that office, and if you go ahead and if that particular male employee, he goes ahead and says I love you to that girl, would that be considered as sexual harassment? Can anyone answer me? Any male colleague going up to a female colleague and saying that I love you, would this be considered to be sexual harassment? No, absolutely right. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. All it's I'm very happy to see that everyone is on the same page. But friends, if this girl refuses the advances, or if she says that you have said this thing once, and if you say this again, I will not feel comfortable. And still if that male colleague goes up and tries to talk to her, or ask her out again, or say I love you again, that particular incident will be considered as sexual harassment. And that is why I say that your awareness and sensitization plays a very important role. Now, as we are digging deeper into this subject of sexual harassment, let us try to understand that what are the acts or what are the behavior that constitute to be sexual harassment. So, first of all, let us start with what is POSH at workplace. So, the full form of POSH is nothing but prevention of sexual harassment. This act, under the gambit of which POSH at workplace falls, is formally called Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Prevention, Prohibition, and Redressal. So if you try to understand if you try to read between the lines, and if you try to understand the main motive of the act, it was basically to prevent any sort of a sexual harassment incident happening, in order to secondly prohibit any such incident happening. And suppose if an incident happens, then there should be a redressal mechanism to address this particular issue. And that is the reason the entire or the full name of the act is Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Prevention, Protection, and Redressal. Now, the main objective, as we all know, of this act was to ensure the safety of women and to ensure that they are not harassed or violated at the workplace, because somewhere this act was designed to be in unison with the Article 21 of the Constitution of India, that guarantees the right to life. Now, since we have already understood that what is basically sexual harassment, what is the name of the act, let us also talk about what are the different incidences or what are the different acts that are considered to be sexual harassment of women at workplace. So first of all, let us pick the thumb rule, as they say. So the thumb rule is that any act, any gesture, any behavior which makes a woman feel uncomfortable or which outrages her modesty can be termed as sexual harassment. And the Section 2N of the Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Act defines certain actions and certain behaviors that constitute sexual harassment of a woman at the workplace. So the first act or action that would be considered sexual harassment would be physical contact and advances. So any kind of unnecessary touching, hugging, coming too close to a woman that makes her feel uncomfortable will fall under the gambit of physical contacts and advances. Demand or request for sexual favors. So this also constitutes any sort of indirect request, like calling someone home after office hours or purposely making them wait without any reason and trying to indirectly indicate that he's interested in any sort of sexual favor. That will fall under this gambit of demand or request for sexual favors. Then there is making sexually colored remarks. So calling someone dark skinned or calling someone calling someone with in a derogatory way, mentioning the skin tone or the skin color on which the person does not have any control or the woman does not have any control on. Such acts will also be termed as sexual harassment. तो to give a very practical example, अरे ये कितनी काली है, ये कितनी भद्दी दिखती है, तो ये सब चीजें बोलना भी also will be termed as sexual harassment because it makes her feel very uncomfortable, and the tone or the skin color should not be a factor for harassing someone. So that is the reason this has also been mentioned in in the gambit of sexual harassment. Other things that come are showing pornography. So any showing any sort of audios, any sort of videos, or any sexually explicit photos or videos will come into the gambit of sexual harassment. And any other unwelcomeable physical, verbal, non-verbal conduct of sexual nature will consider or will be a part of the sexual harassment at a workplace. So, friends, since now we understand that what are the different kind of behaviors, what are the different kind of actions that constitute to be sexual harassment. Now, let us also try to understand that what are the obligations that this act has put on the companies to safeguard the modesty and integrity of a woman. So, in order to understand that, let us see what is the composition of the internal complaints committee. So, it is mandatory for every employer who has more than 10 employees to formulate and constitute an internal complaints committee for addressing any sexual harassment complaints in the said workplace. A very important compliance that needs to be followed by companies is that if they have office at different districts or states, then such committee needs to be set up at every head office of that district or that state. So let's take an example that if one company has an office in Mumbai and they have one office in Bangalore, so it is compulsory as per the act that there is a sexual harassment committee that is set up in the Mumbai office as well, and there is a sexual harassment committee that is set up in the Bangalore office as well. So this is one of the important parts that we need to know. Even if there are offices in the same state and different districts, even at that different district levels, it is mandatory or it is compulsory that every such head office on that district or in that district will have an internal complaints committee. Now, friends, let us try to understand that what constitutes sexual harassment, or what is the constitution of the internal complaints committee. So the internal complaints committee starts with the presiding officer. Now, the presiding officer shall head the functioning of the internal committee, and also it will govern the various activities that have been conducted by the committee. Now, a mandatory factor in choosing the presiding officer is that it shall be a woman who's employed at a very senior level at the workplace from amongst the employee. So, for to give you an example about the presiding officers, even the CEO, manager, director of that particular company, if she is a female, then she can become the presiding officer in that committee. Now, other two members that are also required to be a part of this committee would be amongst the employees, and they would be preferably committed to the cause of women or who have experience in social work, or if they have any sort of legal knowledge. So any female lawyer who's a part of that particular company, who's an internal counsel in that particular organization, she can also become a part of this committee. Now, the third member is one of the most important members of this committee, and that member should be from amongst the non governmental organizations or associations that are committed to the cause of women, or a person who's familiar with issues related to sexual harassment. And the term of the presiding officers and other members shall not exceed 3 years. So, friends, if you look at the constitution of the Internal Complaints Committee, let us try to, let us try to dissect some important facts that arise or that can be seen from this Internal Complaint Committee. So, the first member is the presiding officer, who shall be a part of the management, or who should be a part of the who should be a part of the managing committee of the company. So they have taken one representative from the company, from the management side, and then there should be two other, members, preferably women, who have legal knowledge or who have, been working with causes related to women. So they have taken some representatives from the employee side as well. So one member from the management, two members from the employee side, and the third and most important member is the external member, because all the investigations that are taking place in this particular scenario, or when such complaints are raised, we all need to understand this thing, that the principles of fair and free trial are always considered before for carrying out any sort of an investigation. So there are cases where the company where the members from the side of the company, like the presiding officer or the other two members, they have been biased to a particular woman, or they have been biased to a particular man. So in order to minimize this biasness, and to ensure that the committee is impartial and unbiased, they have constituted this provision of having an external member. So this external member acts like a watchdog on the other members of the committee who are a part of the same company. Because in the corporate culture, it does happen that a particular committee is biased towards a particular woman, or is biased towards a particular man. So at the end of the investigation, injustice should not be caused either to the victim or to the accused. And hence, in order to ensure the impartiality and unbiasedness of the committee, they have constituted you can say, the provision of an external member. So this is the basic constitution of the Internal Complaints Committee that has to be constituted by every company. Now let us understand that what has the government done, or what are the provisions from the side of the government to prevent such instances, or to address any incidences of sexual harassment happening at a workplace. So the local complaints committee is set up by the government at every district level, and it is mandatory for every district to have a local complaints committee. The district magistrate or the additional district magistrate, the collector or the deputy collector shall be called as the district officer, and he will carry out the functions required under this act. And every district officer shall constitute in his district a local complaints committee to receive complaints of sexual harassment from establishments where the internal complaint committee has not been instituted due to having less than 10 workers or 10 employees. So let us also try to understand what is the constitution of the local complaints committee. Now, the local complaints committee starts with the chairperson. The chairperson shall be the head of the local complaints committee and shall lead all the functioning of this particular committee. Now, the mandatory factor here is that the chairperson shall be a woman who's doing social work which is dedicated to the cause of women. Then there should be one member that has to be nominated from amongst the women who are working in that particular block or who are working in that particular taluka or tehsil or that particular ward or that municipality in that particular district. Then there should be two more members of whom at least one shall be women that has to be nominated from non-governmental organizations or associations which are committed to the cause of women. And at least one of the members should have a legal background or a legal knowledge, and the terms of the chairperson and other members shall not exceed more than 3 years. So, friends, after once we are going ahead and trying to understand what is the internal complaints mechanism that the company has to set up, what is the mechanism that has to be set up on a government level. If you look at the internal complaints committee and if you look at the local complaints committee, you will find certain similarities in that particular committee. One of the similarity that everyone would have been seeing here is that they focus that at least half of the members in that particular committee should be women. Okay, and I understand it from the man's perspective as well. Lot of men come up to me and tell me that, okay, this is very biased. Okay, why the internal complaints committee has maximum number of females and no and at least half should be females. So my answer to them is very logical. See, please try to understand the the psychology of a female mind. Now, as male, we are we can go ahead and discuss our problems with anybody, but a woman may sometimes feel shy to discuss this horrendous acts of sexual harassment in front of any male member. सो एक हमेशा एक हम लोगों ने फिल्म्स में वगैरह देखते हैं हम लोग कि एक औरत ही औरत का दर्द समझ सकती है. So basically that is the entire motive or entire notion behind that. The woman should feel very comfortable, she should feel very free in order to go ahead and discuss the issue that she is facing. And sometimes if there are more male members in the committee, there might be possibility that she won't be able to freely go ahead, open up and discuss her issue that freely. And that is the reason they have said that there should be more female members, because this entire act is basically to support or to protect the modesty of a woman. And which other woman will understand the plight of any other woman? And that is the reason, in order to ensure that the girl feels very comfortable, that is the reason we should actually go ahead and that is the reason they have said that there should be more male members. And another similarity that I would like to point out in front of you in terms of the internal complaints committee and the local complaints committee is both the committees emphasize the need of having an external member. Now, why this external member is very necessary? See, in order to ensure that the investigation is done in a very unbiased or in a very impartial manner, they have kept this provision of an external member. So the external member actually monitors, if the committee is functioning properly, if there is no kind of a bias towards one particular victim or to a particular accused. So as an external member, it keeps a watch on the internal members, and it ensures that the functioning happens in a proper legalized manner which is in line with the principles of fair and free investigation. So that is the reason they have kept an external member. They have kept more number of females in order to ensure the comfortability of a woman to go ahead and to come ahead and come up with their problems and discuss what things are there in their mind in a very free and in a very open manner. Now since now let us understand what is the complaint procedure. What is how do you make the complaint? What is the timeline? Let us try to understand what goes behind that. So any aggrieved woman can make a complaint to the internal complaints committee, or if there are less than 10 employees, she can go ahead and make a written complaint to the local complaints committee within 3 months from the date of the last sexual harassment incidents. Any assistance as to make the complaint shall be provided by the internal complaints committee or the local complaints committee, and such assistance shall be absolutely free of cost. There should be no kind of remuneration that needs to be asked, or there should be no sort of a fees that will be taken for assisting such a woman, and it should be absolutely free of cost. Now, a very important part that we need to understand, since most of us are lawyers in this group, or there are students who are going ahead and who are studying law, or who are going to be future lawyers. So when such cases come to them, they need to understand that how should they guide a particular woman in making a complaint. So let us try to understand that what should the complaint cover. See, in my experience, I have seen that a lot of women, while making complaint, miss giving details such as the date, time, place of occurrence, if she has any witnesses, if she has any evidences. So when she misses giving such details, it automatically makes the complaint weak, and getting justice becomes difficult in such cases. And therefore, in the interest of justice, the most important part is that the complaint shall be made in writing, and the complaint should highlight an in detailed description of the incident, including the dates, including the probable time when such harassment occurred, if there are any witnesses to such incident, if there are evidences in forms of letters, emails, text messages, videos, or any form of digital or non-digital evidence. And this is a very important part, friends, because most of the people, they don't give evidences, and during the time of investigation, when they take maybe some legal help or some legal guidance, that is when they understand that okay, we had to go ahead and make these we have to put this evidences in the complaints as well. And the defense counsel always takes up this defense, saying that this is afterthought. At the time of complaint, she had no witnesses, she had no evidences, or she did not have any proof of any form, and now she's coming with that. It might be an afterthought, or it might be with a malicious intention. So in order to ensure that the investigation begins at the right note and with the right perspective, that is the reason it is always necessary that the complaint should contain an in detailed description of the particular incident, and that will make the complaint very strong, and it will also help in the investigation procedure. Now, since we are talking about the investigation procedure, let us understand that how does the inquiry or the investigation take place. So as soon as a woman makes a written complaint to the ICC or the LCC, it is the duty of the ICC or the LCC that they initiate an inquiry of the complaint. After initiating the inquiry, the investigation starts, wherein they are required to investigate the matter, and for the purpose of investigation, they have the powers of the district court, which include summoning and enforcing the attendance of any person and examining him on oath, requiring the discovery and production of important documents, giving an opportunity of being heard to the respondent, which includes taking his statement and reply on the complaint, and also taking on record the evidence and proofs that are given by him. Another important part of the investigation is giving an opportunity to the respondent or to the accused to know and submit his response to the evidence and witnesses that are given against him. Friends, as legal students, all right, we all know that any law that has been passed or any thing, all the all the legal framework should always fall within the gambit of the principles of natural justice. So, and one of the important principles of natural justice is allowing the accused to submit his side of the story, to submit responses on the evidences that are given against him. Because if that is not done, then the judgment would be one sided without hearing the other side of the party, which is a gross violation of the principles of natural justice. I'm sure that if there are any, law students who are, attending this particular webinar, everyone must have heard the case of Maneka Gandhi versus the Passport Authority, in which her passport was revoked, and without giving her an opportunity to submit her response on why the passport should not be revoked, without giving her an opportunity of being heard, that is why this this case was being put up, and the Supreme Court very properly passed this judgment that without giving an opportunity of being heard, it will be a gross violation of the principles of natural justice, and that is why it is imperative. Maybe the accused might submit something or he might not submit something, but giving him an opportunity to submit his side of the story is definitely mandatory. Because while handling these posh cases, I have seen lot of internal complaint committees that are very biased towards men. They do not want to take any sort of evidences that they are giving. They are not ready to take any kind of witnesses that they are ready to prove that will be helpful to prove their case. So all such scenarios I have seen them happening, and hence it is very imperative that in order to ensure that a proper investigation is done or a proper decision or a judgment is coming on that particular incident, it is necessary that both the parties are given an opportunity to be heard, and also to give their own side and own explanations of the sexual harassment incident. So, friends, can someone tell me what is the timeline for the inquiry and investigation? Can anybody tell me? In how many days should the investigation be complete? Can anybody tell me? Does anyone has that? Any answer would be a good answer. I'm not judging you. It's not you are not supposed. Okay, Monarch Monk, good. Yes, 3 months is the right answer. Absolutely. It's not 60 days, Anshuman. It is 90 days actually. Within a period of 90 days from the date the complaint has been submitted, the internal complaint committee has to ensure that they submit a proper report to the company and also to the district officer if the need arises. So please remember that the timeline is 90 days. If they don't do it, then that means that the functioning of the committee is in violations to the provision of this act, and the committee can be dismissed. So let us understand that what happens after the investigation is concluded after that 90-day period. So after the investigation is completed, a detailed report of the findings of the investigation shall be submitted to the employer by the internal complaints committee and the district officer if the investigation is carried out by the local complaints committee. And a copy of the report shall be given to the victim as well as to the accused. So that means a copy shall be given to the woman who has made the complaint as well as to the person against whom such complaint is made, and such report shall be submitted within a time frame of 10 days to the employer or the district officer as the case may be. So now let us try to understand what are the duties of the employer and the district officer after receiving the investigation report. So basically, there are three scenarios in this. So the first scenario is, when no sexual harassment is deduced. So in this particular scenario, when the ICC or the LCC comes to a conclusion that no sexual harassment has taken place, and the ICC or the LCC shall mention this very clearly in the report, and send the recommendation or the report of the investigation to the employer, recommending that no action needs to be taken against the accused and the accused should be acquitted of all the charges. Now let us try to understand the second scenario. What happens when the complaint is found to be malicious? So when the IC, Internals Committee, or the Local Complaints Committee concludes that the complaint was made with malicious intentions, the ICC or the LCC shall recommend the employer or the district officer to take strict action against the woman, which includes termination, and they can also invoke criminal charges under the Indian Penal Code against the woman. Now, part C or the third scenario is when the complaint is proven and the person is found to be guilty. So when the internal complaints committee or when the local complaints committee concludes that the complaint is true and sexual harassment has taken place, it may order the employer or the district officer to take strict action as per the internal policies set up by the company, which includes suspension or it may also include termination of the accused. And secondly, they can also order to grant monetary compensation, and the order to pay the compensation can be given from the salary or the wages of the accused to the tune of the damages suffered by the aggrieved woman. So, friends, one question that would always come to your mind is that what if the employee does not pay compensation as directed by the internal committee or as directed by the local complaints committee? So, in case the accused fails to pay the sum referred by the internal complaints committee or the local committee, they may forward it to the concerned district order officer, and they will pass an order for the recovery of sum as an arrear of land revenue. So that is how it will be, that is how the compensation will be taken, and this is how this entire thing will go on, or this entire thing will happen. So, friends, also let us try to understand that what is the procedure for appeal, because in many cases, I have seen that there are certain false cases that have been put up against men, wherein there was a mutual relationship that was going on between the male and the female, and the relationship went sour, and the female has gone ahead and made a complaint of sexual harassment, and sometimes the committee has been biased and the order has been passed against the man. So what do we do in that case? So they have set up a mechanism for appeal. So any person who is aggrieved with the order, or if he is not happy with the recommendations made by the internal committee or the local complaints committee, they can prefer an appeal to the additional labor commissioner within 90 days after receiving the recommendation report of the investigation and the findings. So, friends, there will be scenarios, or there will be certain things that might not be working very properly in terms of the internal complaints committee. So, for example, I'll give you a very live example. I was a legal consultant for one of the companies, and the presiding officer was the wife of the CEO, and she was working in the as the head of the HR department, and she used to run the committee as per her whims and as per her fancies. So any complaint of sexual harassment when it used to come to her, she used to try and convince the person that it would convince the girl, in fact, that this would put a very black mark on your career. He's saying sorry, so why don't you go ahead and forgive him and withdraw the complaint? Friends, please try to understand all these things are not allowed to be done by the presiding officer, or these are not allowed to be done by any member in the internal complaints committee or the local complaints committee. I knew one of the HRs who was my friend, and she was also a part of that internal complaints committee. And there was a mutual affair that was going on between the boy and the girl, and the boy showed messages to the as his defense. And this HR lady said that, okay, अभी तो आपका affair चल रहा था, तो इसमें harassment कैसे क्या हुआ? and this particular girl made a complaint against this HR, and this HR was thrown out from that committee because you are not supposed to be biased, or you are not supposed to lead the victim or the accused in any manner in this particular issue. So these are the kind of things that need to be actually followed. Now there will be times, or there will be, as lawyers, there will be cases wherein you will be handling cases wherein women will come and say that the internal complaints committee has been biased, and there will be cases wherein even men will come and say that the decision again that has been passed is not as per the is not right in, or is not in tune with the principles of natural justice. So what do we do in that particular case? What is the procedure that we need to follow? Let us try to understand this. So if the presiding officer or any member, if he is not behaving properly, or if he is not following the guidelines, or if he is not taking up the right investigative steps, or is not doing the investigation in a proper manner, that is when the male or the female, in this terms the victim or the accused, can go ahead and immediately complain this to the local complaints committee, and the local complaints committee will take up this matter, and they will, if they immediately need to go ahead and respond and help out that particular victim or the accused who says that the committee is being biased. Now, there will be also scenarios wherein there will be complaints against the local complaints committee. So, when there are complaints against the local complaint committee, what do you think would be the higher authority wherein we can go and we can go ahead and make this complaint? So, the higher authority will be the district officer. So, in this case, it will be the district magistrate, or the additional district magistrate, collector, or the deputy collector who would be taking up the complaints against the local complaints committee. So, if there are any sort of issues that are not happening right in terms of the investigation procedure, it is very imperative that you make a written complaint to the, if it is against the internal complaints committee, then please make it to the local complaints committee. And if it is against the internal complaints committee and the local complaints committee both, then you can make a complaint to the district officer. And even in this case, please ensure that you give the facts and scenarios in the most detailed descriptive manner ever possible, because you have to ensure that you mention again the dates, times, session, everything that you have to very well go ahead and mention this in the complaint. Now, since we have already completed 48-50 minutes in this particular webinar, let us try to understand what are the obligations that this act has put on the companies in order to ensure that they create a safe and secure working environment for women. So what are the duties of the employer? So the first thing, as we said, is providing a safe working environment for women at workplace. Secondly, it is mandatory that they have to constitute an internal complaints committee for managing and handling the sexual harassment complaints. Thirdly, they have to display at conspicuous place in the workplace the penal consequences of sexual harassment. And one more thing that is also required is that they should display at a very conspicuous place in the workplace the name and contact details of the internal complaint committee members. So this provision has basically been made in order to ensure that anyone who's facing any sort of a sexual harassment, they always have the option, or the option is very readily available. They don't have to search for the names of the internal complaints committee. They don't have to search the names of the contact details, or how do you go ahead and send them a how do you get in touch with them. So all these details should be very freely available with the person who's facing any such issue like that, and hence they should display the names and addresses of the internal complaints committee at a very conspicuous place in the workplace. And friends, let me also tell you a practical aspect. You visit, if you visit any companies for interviews, or if you visit any companies in your lifetime, I will tell you that 99% of the companies are not displaying the name of the internal complaint committee members at a very conspicuous place. Most of the employees don't even know that the company has an internal complaints committee for that, and that is the hard truth or the hard reality of life. So this is what you have to be very careful about, and they should, the company should go one step further in creating that safe and secure environment. But unfortunately, the ground reality is 90% of the companies, I have not seen the names of the members of the internal complaints committee. Other thing is that they have to organize workshops and awareness programs at regular intervals for sensitizing the employees with the provisions of the act. And also there should be orientation programs for the members of the internal complaints committee. Now friends, you might want to ask that why do orientation programs or this such kind of awareness sessions need to be created for the committee members in general, because they are supposed to be experts. So friends, as said, this act is a fairly new act, and lot of evidences that are given today are given in the form of digital evidences, and the committee has the power of a district court. So they have been given a very high power in their hands, and they should ensure that they are utilizing the power properly, and they should be trained, or they should about what are the procedures for extracting a digital evidence, how to ensure that the digital evidence has not been tampered. So all this kind of orientation or all this kind of awareness and sensitization should be given to the internal complaints committee to ensure that they function in a very unbiased, professional, and a impartial manner. That is the whole motive of having having it made compulsory for the internal complaints committee for having orientation programs. Secondly, in the orientation programs, they also come to know that if there are any new kind of crimes that are committed in the workplace against women, and they get the sort of knowledge or the a pre-hand information about what is going on. So this is the reason orientation programs for members of the internal complaints committee is also compulsory. Secondly, lastly, I would say a very important point is that the company is supposed to provide assistance to the woman if she chooses to file a police complaint relating to sexual harassment with the necessary police authorities. So, just to give you a nutshell or a synopsis of the duties of the employer, first of all, is providing a safe working environment for the woman at workplace, constituting an internal committee, displaying at a conspicuous place the penal consequences of sexual harassment and the names and contact details of the internal committee, organizing workshops and awareness programs for the employees, and orientation programs for the members of the internal committee. And last but not the least, provide assistance to the woman if she chooses to file a complaint relating to sexual harassment with the necessary police authorities. So, one question that I would like to ask you, friends, if a woman wants to go ahead and make a complaint under the Indian Penal Code or under the sections of the Indian Penal Code, what do you think would be the sections that would be invoked? Can any lawyer in this forum or any law student, I would be happy to understand the answers. Section 354, Shefali is absolutely right. Anyone else? Okay. All right. So one section is section 354 and one section is section 509. So these are the two sections under which a male predator or a male accused can be, an FIR can be registered under this particular sections. So once you become lawyers, or who are, or there are, if there are any lawyers who are, part of this forum, they need to understand that when such cases come, they also should ensure that they should go ahead and suggest the woman to file a police complaint as well. Because sometimes what happens is that when they file the police complaint, the internal complaints committee becomes more vigilant, because they know that even police are investigating the matter, and it acts as a additional lock on these people that they ensure that the internal complaints committee does the investigation in the proper manner, because even police are going ahead and investigating the matter. So this is how you have to go ahead and tackle live cases that come to you as lawyers or future lawyers. You have to ask them what are the steps they have followed. Another thing which is a misconception among lot of employees that I've seen, that whenever they have to go ahead and file a complaint under the relevant provisions of the Sexual Harassment Act, they actually go ahead and file the complaint with the HR. Now, HR, unless and until she is not the member of the internal complaints committee, she is not trained, or she is not she is not, you can say, empowered by this act to undertake any such complaints. Such complaints should be only and only made to the internal complaints committee. If the HR is sending you any show cause notice for giving your response to the internal to any sexual harassment complaint, then you should not go ahead and respond to her, because she is not the right authority. And that is the reason, I once again come to the point wherein the internal complaints committee there is a external member from the NGO, because she also acts as a subject matter expert. She's nothing but a monitor, she's nothing but a subject matter expert, who has lot of experience, who has lot of knowledge, because she has been dealing with issues related to women empowerment and development, and she can definitely use her knowledge to ensure that the investigation is proper, and the report of the investigation comes in accordance to the principle of natural justice. So this is how this entire act, or this entire gambit has been formulated to ensure the safety and security of women. So we are already we have already completed almost an hour in this session. So my talking part is now over, and now I would like to go ahead and take up some questions from you, which I would be very happy to answer them. And before I end this webinar, I would make one very strong request to all the women in this webinar. So first of all, we'll start with the questions. If you have any questions, please go ahead and put up your questions. Okay, Monarch Monk is asking me, what is the limitation period? Limitation period for what? Monarch, can you please tell me what is the limitation period that you're asking? In order to file a complaint, it is 3 months. You have to file the complaint within the 3 months from the last sexual harassment incidents, and the investigation should be completed within 90 days. Report should be given in 10 days to both the parties. For filing case, 90 days. Okay, okay, right, right, okay. Anyone else, please, can you tell me what to do in a situation where female was working at the organization 3-4 years ago? She left the job, and after 2 years she filed a case that the sexual harassment. Let me see, where did it go? Okay, sorry. So Sombir Singh has asked me this question. Please, can you tell what to do in a situation wherein female was working at the organization 3-4 years ago. She left the job, and after 2 years she files a case, which and in that case she says that 7-8 times she was sexually harassed by the same person. So first thing, Sombir, let us understand that any complaint about sexual harassment has to be made within the first 3 months of the incident when it took place. So when she's coming up after 2 years to go ahead and file the complaint, first thing is that the internal complaints committee or the local complaints committee does not have the authority to entertain this complaint, because the limitation period of filing this complaint has already been passed. So another thing that she can actually go ahead and do is that, though this complaint was 3-4 years back, instead of approaching the internal complaints committee, she can approach the local police station, wherein she can register an FIR under the sections of section 354 and 509, and criminal intimidation, and if there is any sort of a conspiracy, then even conspiracy. So she cannot, she does not have the authority to file it with the internal committee or the local complaints committee. She has to take it up with the local police station. I hope I have answered your question, Sombir. Okay. Mr. Batao, if a man is falsely accused, then how can he save himself? If a man is falsely accused, he has to give proofs, he has to give evidences, he has to put up his side of the story, which he can prove to be true. So that is how he can save himself. Is there a provision of conciliation and how is it to be initiated? Narendra Kumar has asked me this question, and I'm really sorry that I forgot to throw some light on this part. And thank you, Narendra, for reminding me of this. So any type of conciliation, if it takes place, a ground rule or a thumb rule to this is that any sort of conciliation that is taking place, it should be at the instance or it should be at the request of the woman. No committee member, no presiding officer, no local complaints committee can ever initiate a conciliation unless and until the request for conciliation or settlement has come from the side of the woman. So, friends, can you tell me that? Okay, I'll only answer this, I'll not ask this question. So, what generally happens is if the conciliation has been initiated from the side of the woman, then in the terms of the conciliation or in the terms of the settlement, there should be no form of monetary settlement. So ऐसा होता है कि the girl says ठीक है I want to go ahead and reconcile this matter and I want 50,000 rupees from that particular boy, then that will not become a part of the conciliation procedure, and it is against the law to have such sort of a conciliation or to have such sort of a settlement. I hope I have answered your question, Narendra. Okay, now Ekta Mukherjee is asking me, my question is about sexual harassment in unorganized sector. Ekta, very good question once again. See, the motive of this entire act is to ensure the safety of a woman who's working in a particular workplace. Now, in order to ensure that all the women who are working somewhere are classified or the entire incidences fall into the gambit, they have made sure that the definition of workplace includes your proper corporate offices, your hospitals, colleges, tuition classes, even the maid working in your house. If she complains against the owner that he has harassed her or has tried to sexually trouble her or traumatize her, even a maid can file a complaint with the local complaints committee against the owner of the house who has engaged in this particular act. I hope I have answered your question, Ekta. So Prithviraj is asking me why not speak about falsely accused men. Yes, of course, if the men want to come and speak about being falsely accused and what all things happen, they are free to go ahead and do that. So Prithvi, we all need to understand that this is everyone, the biggest mistake everyone is making, or specifically the men are making over here, is that they feel that this act is very biased towards the woman. कमिटी में वुमन है, लोकल कंप्लेंट्स कमिटी में वुमन है, ज्यादा से ज्यादा मेजोरिटी वुमन होनी चाहिए, प्रिसाइडिंग ऑफिसर वुमन होनी चाहिए, इसका मतलब वो एक्ट बायस्ड है. No, friends, this act is not at all biased. In fact, if you read the act thoroughly and if you try to understand the motive behind this act talks about gender neutralization, and it ensures that women are empowered about their rights and even men are given are made understood that what are the acts that constitute sexual harassment. So if we don't take it in a negative sense and if we don't take it in a biased manner, then you will, all will feel that it is a very gender neutral act, because nowhere in the act it says that a man who has not committed sexual harassment will also be punished. ऐसा कहीं पे लिखा नहीं है कि सिर्फ कंप्लेंट के ऊपर उसको रेस्ट्रिकेट किया जाएगा या उसको टर्मिनेट किया जाएगा या उसको सस्पेंड किया जाएगा. In fact, the act is so gender neutral that they have also made a provision in case that the complaint is found to be malicious by the woman. If a malicious complaint is filed by a woman, even they have made a provision for the for this particular scenario. So please don't consider that this is a gender it is a biased act towards women. It is absolutely a gender neutral act. Anand Patel is asking me, what if a police harass the woman? If a police harasses a woman, please go ahead and make a complaint with his senior. So if it is a PSI or a API, make it with the senior police inspector of that police station. If it is against the senior PI, make it to the DCP or the ACP of that area. Or if it is a rural area, make it to the DYSP. And if it is against the DCP or the ACP, make it to the CP. So one authority higher is the rule. Let me see if we have. Sir, can convict be jeopardized both in LCC and courts? सी कोर्ट्स का टाइम तब आता है जब कोई भी टाइप का कंप्लेंट जब होता है, इफ इट गोज इनटू द अपील देन इट कम्स इनटू द फोरे ऑफ द कोर्ट, अदरवाइज इट इज सॉल्व्ड एट द लेवल ऑफ द एलसीसी और द आईसीसी बोथ. Can men file a posh complaint against a woman? No, we cannot file that. Nobody cares about Andy. Okay. What if okay, Hari K is asking me, what if a woman files a false complaint? So if a woman files a false complaint and in the investigation it is proved that she has filed a false complaint, then she can definitely go ahead and she can a criminal proceeding can be instituted against her. What is the minimum punishment of sexual harassment? There is no minimum punishment that has been prescribed, but the person can be awarded compensation. And if the case goes to the police and a case is registered under the relevant sections of the IPC, then based on the section, the punishment will be granted. I hope, Sophie Mushtaq, I have answered your query. Okay. What if a committee member is harassing woman? Mohammed Farid has asked me this question. So if the committee member is harassing a particular woman, that particular woman can make a complaint to the presiding officer. If the complaint is against the presiding officer, then to the local complaints committee. And if the local complaints committee is not listening, then they can make it to the district officer. Now, one more thing that I would like to tell you to all the ladies, in fact, in this particular group. Now, the Ministry of Women and Child Development have come up with a website by the name of shebox.nic.in. So it is shebox.nic.in. So on this particular website, you can file an online complaint of any sexual harassment that has taken place with you in the workplace or otherwise. So any woman who's facing a sexual harassment, they have made a special provision that the woman, if she chooses that she does not want to talk to the internal complaints committee, she can make a straight complaint, an online complaint on this shebox.nic.in. And please make sure, all the girls, that please mention all the facts, circumstances, dates, times, witnesses. Please give an in detailed description so that the investigation starts at the right note or on the right footing. Now, one more thing, that I would also like to tell you is that such complaints will be locally directed to the internal complaints committee or the local complaints committee, as the case may be, and then we have to go ahead and follow it up with them. So this is how this entire thing works. So is this act applicable to the LGBT community? See, this act is applicable to any woman who's been harassed by a man. Unfortunately, they have not, as I said, this act is just 7 years old. So I'm sure that there will be a certain time period that would be required to ensure that even, there is something for the men, there is something for the LGBT community, there is something for the transgender community. All these things will come in the future as the, things, start progressing. Anuj Gupta is asking me, will the woman be sacked or blacklisted if the complaint is found to be false? She may be terminated, but she cannot be blacklisted. Okay, 10 employees is the need of the LCC. Is it 10 employees 10% or 10 women. No, totally there should be 10 employees in which at least one should be woman. अगर एक भी woman है वो 10 में तो ICC setup करना compulsory है. Tanu Dange is asking me, can the time limit of 3 months be extended? Yes, but there should be a proper reason for the condonation of delay. So कोई भी डिले हो रहा है 3 महीने से ज्यादा, there should be a proper and valid explanation with a proper proof. Suppose आज 1 महीने के लिए आप बीमार हो तो you should have come up with the medical certificate before making the this. What is WFH? What is this WFH? Okay, it is work from home. WFH is work from home. Okay, Omkar Shah is asking me, sir, defamation case can be filed. See, if the complaint has, if it is proved in the recommendation or in the investigation that no sexual harassment has been deduced or the complaint is malicious, then definitely you can sue that woman for defamation as well. Anyone else wants to ask? Okay. Sumit Batra is Bara is asking me, how is it different from Vishaka guidelines? See, it's not different from Vishaka guidelines. It is just one step further, or a one. It is like an upgrade to the Vishaka guidelines, is what I can tell you in a very easy way. The Narendra Kumar is asking me, does it apply during work from home? Yes, absolutely. It applies when you are working from home. It is also applicable if a woman goes to a different workplace. Like, for example, if the woman is working in the sales department and if she's gone to meet a client in that client's office, and if that client commits any act of sexual harassment, even then she has the right to go ahead and make a complaint with the internal complaints committee. Hemo Priya is asking me, sir, defamation can be filed only when he is exposed to the public right. Sorry, I did not understand this question. In the meantime, I will answer Kapil Singh's question. If woman willingly had sexual relationship with her boss but then accuses him of false sexual harassment, falsely says boss forced me to have sex otherwise, she will be terminated. How the boss will be saved? See, any case that is going on against you or it is going for you, your evidences and witnesses play a very important role. Now, for example, if she says that, okay, my boss is raping me from the past 3 months, what can be done? So if the boss comes up with pictures, when they are, or if there are any video recordings wherein they are happy, or if there are any messages saying that, okay, we are having a voluntary relationship, sexual relationship. So all these evidences and witnesses, when they are given, it can be proved that this was you can say a consensual relationship, and hence this does not come under the foray of sexual harassment. But yes, if the relationship has ended and the sexual harassment incident has happened after it has ended, then it will definitely come in that forum or in that foray. Okay, so I think I have answered most of the questions. I have taken you through what is sexual harassment. What Robbie Gigi is asking me now, it has become too risky to have a female team member. Absolutely not. Please change this mentality and mindset. It is definitely not risky to have a female team member unless and until the male is not predating on her. So even this is absolutely a gender biased statement that has been made, and I will not appreciate this. Sir, why all law in favor of women? Why not law to queer men? See, all the male members should understand this. That if you look at the Indian Penal Code, there are 511 sections, out of which only 2 sections have been given to protect the integrity and modesty of women. If we look at the physical constitution of a man and a woman, a man is more physically stronger, and hence he has, if someone is coming and threatening him and harassing him, as a psychology point of view, it is understood that he can go ahead and fight it back. But if you see, a woman is not as physically stronger, and some cases she's not even that mentally stronger. So as men, in fact, we should come ahead and assist them in making them feel comfortable and ensuring that no sort of injustice is happening to that particular woman. If Mung Suntak Zoe asks, sir, after the sexual harassment cases are taken under the customary law or traditional practices, can philanthropic organizations or church leaders involved in this matter for no, they don't have the authority actually. Okay. So Tanu is asking me that what happens if the organization does not have a posh policy even though it is mandatory. Then if someone makes a complaint against such employer, he can be fined up to 50,000 rupees. Why does the court why does the court not disclose the name of the false complaint? See, in any legal matter, the confidentiality plays a very important part because your your personal life cannot be taken into the public domain, and that is the reason they have made this provision to protect the names of the victim. Anshuman Ganta, sir, what if in live-in relationship, if some harassment is done? Then this will not come into the foray of sexual harassment. It will be taken under the relevant sections of IPC. Rajiv Kumar, okay, but sir, it's easy to defend men and society thinks it must be fault of men, even honest men have to prove. Yes, see, every coin has two sides. Unfortunately, there are false complaints also that have been passed. I'm not denying that, but that is something that is a matter of proof. How do you go ahead and prove that you have been falsely implicated or the complaint is malicious? That all depends on you, and that is why your awareness and sensitization plays a very important role. So Tarun Gupta is asking me how to complain if a female boss is sexually harassing a male employee. So such complaints will directly go to the local police station, not to the internal complaints committee. I hope I've answered all these questions, all your questions in the webinar now. And, you know, I would like to go ahead and make a very humble request to all the women who are a part of this webinar. And that humble request is that any woman who's facing the smallest form of harassment, I would please request them and I would want them to promise me that any smallest incident of sexual harassment will not go unnoticed and they will go ahead and make a complaint in the with the local complaints committee or the internal complaints committee or the district yeah. So that is a promise that I expect from all these women. And by saying this, I conclude this section, this session, and I pass it on to Vikas from Law Updates, who would give the closing notes. And one very important thing for the aspiring advocates or aspiring lawyers, if they are looking up for jobs in the corporate sector, it would be very helpful for them if they do a short course or a certificate course on sexual harassment, because when there are 2 3 lawyers who are applying with you and in your CV, if they see that you have a certificate course on sexual harassment, then your CV will definitely be given preference. So such opportunities will also be opened up by law updates in the future, and they will get back to you with the necessary details if anyone is interested. And girls, once again, one humble request, please do not forget to ensure that if there is any small list of the sexual harassment incident that occurs, please ensure that you make a complaint, because unless and until you don't speak up, your voice is not going to be heard. Another thing is, whenever all the girls join any corporate company, ensure that they read the first of all, please check if there is a posh policy in place. Please check if the company has an internal complaints committee that is set up. Please check if the names and the addresses of the committee members are displayed at a very conspicuous place, because your awareness and your sensitization to this topic will definitely help you to remain safe in the times to come, because most of the women that I know, they only ask about the salary package and and their key responsibilities or their job roles, but they have to understand that integrity and their modesty also comes under the part of their physical safety, of which they should be aware and they should be sensitized about. So by saying that, I would like you to thank everyone who has become who has who is a part of this session. And if you want to do any sort of a certificate course, Vikas from Law Updates will definitely guide you with that. Okay, so I pass it on to Vikas now.
I would like to thank Advocate Abhishek Upadhyay sir for such an informative session and for sparing time out of his busy schedule for this session. I have a small announcement for all the attendees that the link for downloading the e-certificates will be available on our website lawupdates.in on 4th of August. With this, we wrap up this session. And if anyone have any query regarding the course, you can contact us on our email ID, that is lawupdates27@gmail.com, which will be posted in the comment section. With this, we wrap up this session. Thank you for joining this session and stay safe.
Thank you all. Take care.